Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Rajoy and today we are going to talk about social constructionist and postmodernist foundations. I really like this quote by Nelson Goodman that says, "If I ask about the world, you can offer to tell me how it is under one or more frames of reference. But if I insist that you tell me how it is apart from all frames, what can you say?" So this highlights the importance of language and social relationships in social constructionist foundation, which we are going to talk about it in a second in more details. Imagine that I came to our in-person class as a professor like this picture that you are seeing right now, right? If that happened, what I was trying to do was deconstructing the ideas that you have about a professor, how a professor should dress up, how we should be present in an academic setting, right? All those different ideas that you have, I deconstructed them and I tried to bring these new ideas to construct these new ideas about how a professor can dress up, right? So that's about social constructivism. So they believe that everything, the world, the reality, everything is socially constructed, right? So that seems easy in a first look, but let's dig deeper and explore it more. So with constructionist ideas, you will find that some of these words that we know for years and years, like truth, objectivity, reason, knowledge, right? All those words and their definition will change with constructionist ideas. Your understanding of yourself, your thoughts, emotions, desires will also be transformed. Social constructionist ideas would lead us to approach the world in a different way. And this difference is rooted in our social relationships, and it is within these relationships that we construct the world in this way or that way. In relationships, the world comes to be what it is for us, and understanding the importance of social relationships and language in how we construct the world and the reality for ourselves, it's something that we should pay attention to. Social constructionist foundation suggests that we should rethink everything we have been taught about the world, ourselves, reality. When I read that sentence and when I think about it, it seems so exciting and at the same time sometimes scary, right? Because let's be honest, like the basic idea of social construction may seem simple, right? The reality is socially constructed, but think about the consequences. If everything we consider real is socially constructed, then what is real and what is not real? Then nothing is real? Then nothing is real unless people agree that it is? So people, they get skeptical, right? So think about all the different concepts and belief and objects. So think about death, the body, the sun, this chair, my teacher, my classroom, all these different things. Um, are they real? They are not real. They are nothing, right? So that brings up an important point about social constructionism. And that is about the fact that they do not say that there is nothing or there is no reality. What they say is whenever we are defining reality, whether we are talking about death or a chair or the sun, whatever we are talking about, we are speaking from a particular standpoint. Different things happen for sure, but in describing them, we rely on some traditional of sense making, and we use specific language and words and all these different things. This is just one interesting example from my perspective, and I wanted to share that with you. The different use from different views. Just spend some minutes and seconds on it and see if you find anything interesting about it, and or if you have any reflection on it. Social constructivism suggests that reality is socially constructed, which means the way in which we understand the world is not required by what there is. So, as constructionists propose, our practices of language are bound within relationships, and our relationships are bound within patterns of practice. This highlights the importance of language and social relationships, and the link between the outcome from relationships and the gain of constructions and ideas and how sustainable they get to be. The other thing is that as you see here, as we describe and explain, so do we fashion the future. So the challenge of sustaining valued traditions is just one challenge. The other challenge is the creation of alternative futures when we are talking about constructions and ideas. With that introduction about social constructivism, let's talk about modernism versus postmodernism. So as you know, in MFT and CFD, we have modern theories and we have postmodern theories. It's important to review for a second that when we are talking about epistemology, it's about study of knowledge and the process of knowing. And when we are talking about ontology, it's concerned with reality and the nature of being. And modernism and postmodernism, they're both kind of like epistemology that we are talking about. In modernism, there is an absolute truth, right, with big T. And in postmodernism, we believe that individuals construct their own realities, and reality is socially constructed. So there is no truth with capital T, but there can be many truths with a small t. I usually show this picture to my students to talk about modern epistemology versus postmodern epistemology. So if I tell you find their way in this picture maze that you see here, versus if I tell you find a way, like in this picture, in this maze in front of you, that question itself, it suggests different ideas, right? So the way, kind of like how modern epistemology thinks, is about the way that we have in this maze, right? Probably starting from point 1 to point 2 inside the picture, and there's only one way about that, right? Versus if I ask you find a way, right, from point 1 to point 2, there could be many ways. It's not necessarily talking about a way inside the maze, right? You could, connect point 1 to point 2 from many different ways outside the maze. And that's somehow about the difference between modernism and postmodernism. There are a few things that we should keep in mind about reality in postmodernism. First of all, as we mentioned before in this lecture, reality is constructed through language and reality is negotiated through relationships. Again, the highlight of reality and the importance of language and relationships. The next thing is that shared meanings coordinate social action. So when we are talking about social constructivism and also postmodernism, sometimes it's confusing because the question is how we can have a conversation if we all have these different worlds, right? The good part is that we have shared meanings. Without having shared meanings about what is good, what is bad, what is ethical, what is not ethical, we cannot live in a society. And because of that, we define some shared meanings in our societies, and those shared meanings coordinate social action. The other thing is that we can look at reality in postmodernism in different levels and layers. The first one is the linguistics one, and the second one is about personal level, which is about constructivism. How we each of us, we have different worlds of view, and different worlds and different perspectives and beliefs. Then we have relational level, which is about social constructionism, how again, like the importance of language, social relationships, and how our relationships and their outcomes would affect reality, right? And then the last one is societal level, which is about the discourses that we have in our society, and the critical theory that you can read more about it in Dr. Gehart books. I try to keep the lecture short, so I'm not going to be redundant about that. Let's pause here and have a short practice together. Imagine you have a client who asks you, what is a good age for getting married, right? A simple question, very common. So if you want to think about it and talk about it from different perspectives, epistemologies, and theories. For now, let's just think about social constructivism and postmodern theories and epistemology versus modern epistemology. How would your answer be different based on modernism versus postmodernism? Just pause, think about it for a second, reflect on it, and let me know if you have any questions. As you read the text, maybe different articles, or doing the assignments, have this reflection. Think about the role of culture and diversity in modern versus postmodern theories, or just in general epistemology. What do you think about that? Spend a few minutes or seconds, think about it, go through the text, the different articles that you have, and see if there's any difference in your perspective as you read about all these different things. You are about to start reading many different articles and theories, and I know in the beginning it seems confusing or too much information, but my recommendation for you is if you want to write them down or take a screenshot, but have these questions as you read all these different theories moving forward, and after you read through them, ask yourself these questions and spend some time and reflect on them and see if there's anything that seems challenging for you, or any of these questions that sounds interesting to you. And again, like always, let me know if you have any questions or feedback. But I think that these questions, they are really helpful, and I usually recommend it to my students. The same thing about this slide. If you want to write these questions down, or take a screenshot of this video on this slide, but I think that these questions, they can be really helpful when you want to analyze and critique a theory and think about pros versus cons, or things that you like or things that you dislike. So again, have these questions and try to practice them and think about them as you move forward with theories. This is also another practice that I recommend to my students as, again, you move forward with all these different theories. If you have a simple table like this for yourself, then this is just for you and yourself, that you can think about and talk about the strengths versus the critics that you have for all these different theories, and then divide them between modernism and postmodernism, and write about them. I think it would be very useful because it makes it more objective for you, and it helps you remember all these different aspects of them better than before. Last but not least, a question that a lot of MFT and CFD students ask: which theory is the best for me? First of all, before anything, I want to validate your experience and say learning about all these different theories in the beginning, it just seems too much information. And because of the passion that we have about our field and helping others, we just want to know the answer to that question sooner rather than later, right? So I understand that part. But I have a few recommendations for you that might be helpful on your journey of discovering the answer to that question. The first recommendation is simple, just be patient. The second one is focusing on epistemology. Sometimes students, they go directly to a theory or choosing a theory, and I believe that when you focus on epistemology first, thinking about modernism versus postmodernism, and focusing on what you believe about reality, human beings, their strengths, change, all those different things and concepts, it would help you understand what fits and what feels better to you, right? So once you feel like modernism or postmodernism, one of them, either of them, it just feels better and more comfortable and it's aligned with what you believe, then you can choose one of the theories from, those different epistemologies. The next recommendation is something that you hear from a lot of professors, therapists, mentors, and that's this idea about dating versus marrying a theory. So you don't need, when you learn a theory, you don't need to get married to them, in the first look, kind of like just spend some time and date with all these different theories, get to know them, the different aspects of them, see if there is something that is really, really interesting for you in a theory, or that is really, really challenging or feels very uncomfortable for you in another theory. And then once you had a chance to date all these different theories, then you can decide about what feels better and what feels, the best for you. So this recommendation actually leads me to my next recommendation, that choose one theory instead of all of them. Sometimes in my experience, students tell me that my approach is integrative in the beginning, and I just do not believe in that. I think that you need to become masters in one theory, and then you can go to the next one and next one and next one, and all these different trainings and certificates and concepts and things that we have about each theory, right? So becoming professional and skillful in one theory, it really takes time. So it is basically not possible to say that I'm really good, I'm skillful, I'm competent in all the theories, especially in the beginning. So focus on one theory, and even within that theory, focus on one concept, one intervention, one skill. And after you feel like you learned that, you are really competent in that and confident in that, then move to the next intervention or skill in the same theory or technique, right? And then after you are done with one theory, you really feel comfortable, you feel like you are confident about this theory, you can teach it to other people, then after that you can go to the next theory. And do not be afraid of changing your theory, especially as you are moving forward in your academic journey and career, because it is something common that would happen. So if by the end of the semester you say, hey, my approach, my theory of choice is narrative therapy or solution focused therapy, that does not mean that you need to stay with that until the rest of your life. So you can always change your theory if it feels like uncomfortable, or if there is something changes about that theory or yourself. So do not be afraid of change in that sense. So I guess those are the recommendations that I had for you. I hope that you'll find them helpful. And if you have any questions or reflection about this lecture, please let me know. And thank you for watching this.